Hello everyone and welcome to my BNB Metro official channel. Nick binds Ridge to rescue Brooke. Brooke dies in the water. Nick is the cause of Brooke's death. Ridge is beating Nick. Ridge is on the verge of collapse. Despite his tendency to want his cake and eat it too, Ridge Forrester appears to be on the verge of a transformation in his life. The end of Ridge is near. Brooke made it apparent in the most recent BNB show that she would prefer to have a future with Nick over Ridge. Naturally, the attractive Forrester's son didn't anticipate this response. Ridge has been playing cat and mouse with Taylor Hayes and Brooke Logan for a very long time. And Ridge doesn't love the two women for that reason. Because he only loves himself if he loves anyone. All he wanted to do was see who would bend first. Brooke has been informed by Ridge that he sees just Taylor and Taylor together in the future. In actuality, though, he only did this because he enjoyed seeing Brooke implore him to reconsider. Ridge was shocked by Brooke's choice to leave the situation and be with Nick, but only after she made the decision that she would no longer bow down and plead with him. What will happen with Ridge Forrester next? Ridge finds himself in a situation where he is unsure of what to do. That's because Brooke is no longer pursuing him. He has been dangling that carrot in her face, and she has given up attempting to get to it. Indeed, Ridge's games have caused Brooke and Taylor a great deal of suffering. However, now that the roles have been reversed, Ridge will experience something so terrible that he might never fully recover. Nick moaned to this desperate, monstrous act, binding Ridge Forrester, his rival in love and life, with coarse, unforgiving rope to the rusted iron rings embedded in the concrete of the old, disused boathouse, securing Ridge's wrists behind the thick support pillar with knots pulled agonizingly tight, each twist and tug a physical manifestation of Nick's simmering resentment and the terrifying conviction that only by removing Ridge, by rendering him utterly powerless, could he finally secure the fragile, flickering hope of a future with Brooke Logan, the luminous, impossibly resilient woman who had unwittingly become the prize in their ruinous game. The woman whose frantic cries now pierced the roar of the churning Pacific as she struggled against the treacherous current Nick had deliberately, chillingly lured her into, exploiting her trusting nature with a fabricated plea for help near the jagged rocks where the undertow was legendarily vicious, a cruel snare disguised as vulnerability. Ridge, muscles straining against the brutal bite of the ropes, veins bulging at his temples like cables under immense pressure, roared Brooke's name with a raw, guttural fury that echoed off the damp boathouse walls, a sound ripped from the very core of his being, primal and terrifying, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror as he watched her pale form, a splash of vibrant color against the dark, hungry water, being dragged relentlessly further from the slippery rocks she clung to, her strength visibly ebbing with each wave that crashed over her, swallowing her desperate gasps for air. He thrashed against his bonds with superhuman effort born of sheer panic, skin tearing, blood mingling with the damp grime on the ropes, his voice cracking into a hoarse, broken litany of no. Brooke. Swim. Fight, while Nick, standing rigidly on the boathouse deck, a silhouette etched against the bruised twilight sky, watched the unfolding horror with a face frozen in a mask of horrified realization. His initial vindictive purpose evaporating like mist under the brutal sun of consequence. He hadn't wanted this, not truly, not her death, only Ridge's removal, only a chance, but his monstrous calculation, his arrogant belief he could control the volatile elements of nature and human emotion, had fatally underestimated the ocean's savage indifference and Brooke's inherent, selfless courage that would drive her towards perceived danger. Brooke's strength, already taxed by the cold shock of the water and the relentless pull, faltered. A wave, larger and more malevolent than its predecessors, rose like a dark wall and crashed down upon her with annihilating force, snuffing out her cry, submerging her completely, for agonizing seconds that stretched into an eternity for Ridge, whose world narrowed to the spot where she vanished. There was nothing but the churning foam and the deafening roar of the sea. Then, a flash of blonde hair, an arm weakly flailing above the surface, a choked gasp swallowed almost instantly by the next swell. She was drowning, right before their eyes, her life measured in frantic, failing heartbeats against the ocean's vast, uncaring rhythm. Nick. For God's sake, help her. She's dying. Do something. Ridge's scream was pure, shredded agony, a sound that scraped the soul raw, his body convulsing against the unyielding ropes, his eyes, bloodshot and wild, locking onto Nick's with a beseeching, animalistic intensity that demanded action, demanded salvation. That scream, that raw embodiment of Ridge's impending, unimaginable loss, finally shattered the paralysis of Nick's shock. The vindictive schemer vanished, replaced by a man confronted with the catastrophic, irreversible result of his own unforgivable sin. Panic, cold and absolute, flooded Nick's veins. He scrambled towards the edge of the deck, his earlier calculated cruelty replaced by frantic, clumsy urgency, shedding his jacket, kicking off his shoes, his eyes fixed on the spot where Brooke had last surfaced, a spot now terrifyingly empty. "Brooke! Hold on. I'm coming," he yelled, the words ripped from him, laced with genuine terror now, the terror of the architect witnessing his creation collapsing into ruin. He plunged into the icy, tumultuous water, the shock stealing his breath, the current immediately wrestling him, pulling him sideways as he fought to orient himself, kicking desperately towards where he prayed she still was. Underwater, the world was a murky, roaring chaos of swirling sand and greenish gloom. He pushed deeper, straining his eyes, lungs burning, hands grasping at nothing but cold water and strands of seaweed. Seconds felt like hours, his chest screamed for air. He surfaced, gasping, scanning the choppy surface frantically, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Brooke! Where are you?" His cry was desperate, swallowed by the wind and waves. He dove again, deeper this time, driven by a dawning, horrifying certainty. And then he saw her, a pale, graceful shadow sinking slowly through the green haze, arms drifting limply, hair fanning out like golden seaweed, utterly still, a serene statue descending into the abyss. The sight punched the air from Nick's lungs. He kicked violently downwards, reaching, stretching, fingers brushing the silky fabric of her blouse, then closing around her cold, inert wrist. He hauled her upwards with every ounce of his failing strength, breaking the surface with a ragged, sobbing gasp, dragging Brooke's lifeless form towards the relative shelter of the boathouse pilings. Her head lolled back, face deathly pale, lips tinged blue, eyes closed, no breath stirring her chest. Nick clung to a barnacle-encrusted piling, one arm hooked desperately around Brooke, trying to keep her face above the slapping waves, his own breaths coming in harsh, shuddering gasps, the icy water leaching all warmth, his mind reeling with the horror of what he held, not the vibrant woman he coveted, but the chillingly still consequence of his jealousy. "Brooke? Brooke! Breathe. Please, breathe," he pleaded, shaking her gently, patting her cheek, his voice cracking, tears mixing with the salt spray on his face, the full, crushing weight of his culpability crashing down upon him. He had lured her here, he had bound Ridge, he had created the situation where the ocean could claim her. He was directly, undeniably, the cause. He had killed her. On the deck above, Ridge witnessed the dreadful tableau, Nick emerging from the depths with Brooke's limp body, the unnatural stillness of her form, the frantic, useless efforts to revive her in the water. The sight, confirming his deepest, most unspeakable terror, unleashed something feral and ancient within him, a white-hot supernova of grief and rage that momentarily burned through the pain in his wrists, the exhaustion, the despair. With a roar that seemed to shake the very pilings, a sound ripped from the depths of damnation itself, Ridge summoned a reserve of strength born purely of madness and vengeance. He wrenched his body sideways with explosive force, leveraging his weight against the pillar. A sharp crack echoed, not the rope, but the weathered, rust-weakened iron ring tearing partially free from the decaying concrete. It was enough. With another brutal, skin-shredding twist and a surge of adrenaline-fueled agony, Ridge ripped one bloodied hand free, then the other, the ropes falling away like serpents defeated. He didn't feel the raw, bleeding flesh of his wrists, didn't register the screaming protest of his muscles. His entire being was focused with laser intensity on the two figures in the water below, the woman he loved, lifeless, and the man who had murdered her. He moved like a storm surge, a force of pure, destructive nature. Nick, still clinging to Brooke, trying in vain to find purchase to lift her onto the low deck, heard the thunderous footsteps above, the guttural, inhuman sound Ridge made. He looked up just as Ridge launched himself from the deck, not into the water, but onto the slippery wooden ladder bolted to the piling Nick clung to. Ridge descended with terrifying speed, ignoring the rungs, half sliding, half falling, landing with a heavy splash beside them, the water churning violently around his legs. His eyes, when they met Nick's, held no trace of humanity, only a burning, fathomless void of rage and grief. Before Nick could utter a word, could offer a plea or an excuse that would be ashes in the wind, Ridge's fist, a hammer forged in hellfire, connected with Nick's jaw with a sickening, bone-jarring crack. The impact snapped Nick's head back violently, stars exploding behind his eyes, his grip on Brooke instantly loosening. She slipped back into the water, a pale ghost sinking again. Nick barely registered it, the world dissolved into pain and the relentless onslaught. Ridge didn't pause, didn't hesitate. He grabbed Nick by the shoulders, fingers digging into muscle like talons, and slammed his head back against the unforgiving concrete piling. Nick saw a flash of blinding white light, tasted blood flooding his mouth. Ridge hauled him up, water streaming from both of them, and drove a fist deep into Nick's gut, knocking the remaining air from his lungs in a whooshing gasp. Nick doubled over, retching seawater and blood, only to be jerked upright again by a vicious grip in his hair. Ridge's fists became pistons of retribution, fueled by the image of Brooke sinking, the memory of her terrified cries, the decades of rivalry crystallized into this moment of ultimate loss. Left hook to the temple, blurring Nick's vision. Right cross splitting his lip wide open. Uppercut snapping his head back, blood arcing into the darkening air. Nick offered no defense, could mount none, he was a ragdoll in the hurricane of Ridge's grief, each blow a terrible punctuation to the sentence of death he had written. He stumbled back, crashing against the ladder, ribs screaming from the impact. Ridge followed, relentless, a predator consumed by its kill. He grabbed Nick by the throat, slamming him hard against the rough wood, the force threatening to collapse his windpipe. Nick gagged, clawing weakly at Ridge's iron forearm, his eyes bulging, seeing not Ridge's contorted face, but Brooke's pale, still features beneath the water, the terrifying blue of her lips. "You killed her!" Ridge screamed, spittle flying, his voice raw and broken, shaking Nick like a terrier shakes a rat. "You did this. You murdering bastard. She's dead because of you." Each accusation was punctuated by another slam against the ladder, another brutal shake. Nick's vision tunneled, darkness creeping in at the edges. He could taste his own blood, thick and metallic, feel the cold water leaching the last warmth from his battered body, but above all, he felt the crushing, suffocating weight of the truth in Ridge's words. He had killed her. His jealousy, his scheming, his monstrous act of binding Ridge, it had all led to Brooke gasping her last breaths in the cold Pacific. As Ridge drew back a fist aimed at his face, a fist that promised oblivion, Nick didn't flinch. He met Ridge's burning gaze, his own eyes filled with a dawning, abyssal horror that mirrored the depths Brooke now inhabited. I know." Nick choked out, blood bubbling on his lips, the confession a ragged whisper lost in the wind and the relentless crash of the waves against the pilings, the sound a chilling requiem for the woman floating nearby, her golden hair swirling like seaweed in the dark water, a silent, accusing testament to the fatal consequences of Nick Marone's unforgivable choices, while Ridge Forrester, her avenging angel consumed by hellfire, stood poised to deliver the final, furious judgment upon the broken man who had shattered both their worlds. The scene was frozen in that terrible instant, the lifeless beauty in the water, the broken killer accepting his guilt, and the grieving lover transformed into an instrument of wrath, the salt spray stinging their wounds, the fading light casting long, despairing shadows, the only sound the ocean's eternal, indifferent roar. Taylor was aware that Ridge was attracted to Brooke. She is undoubtedly a woman who is constantly on fire, isn't she? Naturally, Brooke Logan from The Bold and the Beautiful is the subject of our conversation. Taylor is aware that Ridge has feelings for Brooke. Taylor Hayes confessed to Donna Logan in the most recent episode that she believes her husband Ridge Forrester still has feelings for Brooke, her rival in love. That's a pretty harsh judgment to make, especially in light of the fact that Brooke and Ridge will be leaving Taylor behind to travel to Italy for work. You never know what might occur in Naples or beneath the sheets of a hotel room, do you? Taylor is being realistic, even if others may believe that she is just acting insecure. She is aware of the type of woman Brooke is, her reputation, and all of her prior actions. You would think that Taylor would make an effort to get Ridge to join her on this vacation to Italy, but she hasn't done so yet. She is merely blindly relying on her husband to act morally and resist Brooke's advances instead. What are Taylor and Ridge's future plans? However, this is Brooke Logan that we are discussing. If we've learned anything about her from the past, it's that she's the type of woman who consistently gets what she wants, especially from the men in her life. By the end of this journey to Italy, we suspect that Taylor's relationship status may have changed, and not because of her own actions. The drama is about to get hotter, so keep an eye on this space. Ridge Forrester's self-assured existence, meticulously constructed over decades on the shifting sands of romantic manipulation and unwavering self-regard, now teeters precariously on the brink of a spectacular and wholly deserved collapse. For years, Ridge has navigated the turbulent waters between Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes not as a man genuinely torn by love, but as a master puppeteer, orchestrating their emotional turmoil for his own perverse satisfaction and supreme sense of control. He demanded the unwavering devotion of both women while offering genuine commitment to neither, a man perpetually wanting his cake and devouring it with voracious entitlement, confident the bakery would never close and the pastries would forever vie for his attention. Yet, the tectonic plates beneath his carefully curated reality have shifted irrevocably. Brooke Logan's defiant, resolute declaration, choosing Nick Marone and a future without Ridge, wasn't just a rejection, it was a sledgehammer blow to the very foundation of his identity, shattering the mirror in which he endlessly admired his own reflection and exposing the hollow core beneath the designer suits and sculpted hair. This moment, where Brooke finally refused to kneel at the altar of his ego, signals not merely a setback, but the imminent downfall of Ridge Forrester, a downfall engineered entirely by his own hubris, emotional cruelty, and catastrophic misjudgment of the woman he claimed, in his own twisted way, to possess. The core of Ridge's impending ruin lies in the meticulously cultivated, toxic dynamic he sustained for so long. His oscillation between Brooke and Taylor was never driven by profound, irreconcilable love for two souls, but by the intoxicating drug of being wanted, fought over, and perpetually the center of their universes. He thrived on the tension, the tears, the desperate pleas, the power inherent in dangling commitment like a carrot just out of reach. When he callously informed Brooke that his future lay solely with Taylor, it wasn't a declaration of genuine love for the psychiatrist, it was a calculated move, a test, designed explicitly to witness Brooke's anguish and, more importantly, her supplication. He craved the spectacle of her begging, her promises to change, her utter vulnerability laid bare before him, tangible proof of his dominion over her heart and self-worth. This was the fuel for his narcissistic engine, the absolute certainty that Brooke Logan, the Logan girl he alternately revered and scorned, would always come crawling back, would always prioritize winning him over her own dignity or happiness. His entire sense of self was predicated on this unshakable belief in his own irresistible allure and Brooke's perceived inability to truly escape his gravitational pull. He mistook her deep, complex, often painful love for him as an inherent weakness, a leash he could yank whenever he desired validation or control. For Ridge, love wasn't partnership, it was a game of cat and mouse where he was always the cat, assured of his prey's predictable movements, confident the chase would never truly end because the mouse was too addicted to the predator's presence. Brooke's decision to choose Nick Marone, therefore, is not just a romantic choice, it's an existential earthquake for Ridge. It represents the unthinkable, the mouse not only escaped the maze but willingly walked into another garden, one where she isn't defined by the chase. Her refusal to get down on her knees anymore wasn't just a withdrawal from the immediate conflict, it was a complete renunciation of the fundamental rules of Ridge's game. By stepping away, calmly and with a newfound resolve, Brooke effectively called his bluff and exposed the emptiness of his power. The carrot, the promise of his exclusive love and commitment, held no allure because she finally saw it for what it always was, a prop, a tool of manipulation, devoid of genuine substance or reliability. The sheer, unadulterated shock on Ridge's face, the utter gobsmacked paralysis, was priceless not just for viewers, but as a clinical display of his psyche fracturing. He wasn't prepared for this outcome because his narcissism rendered him incapable of conceiving a reality where Brooke Logan, his Brooke, would value herself more than she valued winning him. Her choice of Nick, a man positioned as a stable, devoted alternative, regardless of the soap's history, is the ultimate insult. It proves she can envision happiness, security, and a future that doesn't revolve around Ridge Forrester's whims and ego. This realization is kryptonite to his very being. Now, Ridge stands in the echoing silence of his own making, utterly adrift. The chase, the central drama that defined his existence and fueled his sense of purpose and power, has abruptly ended. Brooke isn't chasing him. The game is over, and he lost. The devastating blow isn't simply the loss of Brooke per se, though that is undoubtedly painful, it's the annihilation of the narrative he crafted about himself and his place in the world. He is confronted with the terrifying prospect of irrelevance in the emotional lives of the two women who defined him. Taylor, despite her own complex history and lingering feelings, is unlikely to welcome him back as a mere consolation prize after witnessing his cruel manipulation of Brooke and the lingering specter of his indecision. Brooke has closed the door, seemingly with finality this time. The tables haven't just turned, they've been flipped over, scattering the pieces of his carefully controlled game beyond recognition. The devastation he faces is multifaceted. It's the collapse of his ego, the shattering of his self-image as the irresistible center of the universe. It's the profound loneliness of realizing his manipulations have left